Hey, I'm Ryan McCaffrey with IGN. We're here at 343 Industries getting a behind-the-scenes tour of all 10 Halo 4 multiplayer maps. I am joined by Kynan Pearson, the lead multiplayer level designer on Halo 4. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for coming down and taking a look at these with us.
Oh, happy to be here. So, we're going through all 10 maps. Which one are we going to look at here?
So we're going to take a look at Adrift. This is a small-scale competitive map. It's symmetrical in layout. Adrift is a mining vessel that was converted to support the war effort. So let's jump in.
Let's do it. So you talked in one of our other videos about having sort of buckets of maps. You've got some big-scale maps, maybe some team objective-based things, some smaller scale. You mentioned this is a competitive map. So is this aimed at one-on-one, two-on-two, MLG type stuff?
Absolutely. This is for our objective modes, but the thing that makes this definitely a little more specifically built for competitive play is that it's symmetrical. Mm-hmm. So there are no distinct tactical advantages for either side. There's no differences in play style. The layouts are symmetrical, even though there's some asymmetrical art components. Uh-huh. That being said, those don't interfere with the gameplay of the map. So this map, in particular, has a kind of a cylindrical layout. You have routes that go around the outer edge of the map. So as you can see, you've got these kind of hallways that interconnect into the central chamber. But you've got some reinforceable locations, some cover, and then there's these man cannons that will do a quick launch that get you over into the main team spawn points and the objective locations. So
is the gravity affected at all? Because we appear to be floating. Are we in space or are we on a planet here?
This is actually over the surface of a planet. It's flying in low orbit. It's low enough to where you've got all of the gravity that the planet has. Okay. So as you're going here, none of the gravity is affected. This is your standard jump heights. And then there's these routes that will take you up into this kind of center area. So as you can see out here, there's plenty of cover. There's some elevation changes, but there's lots of different routes that you go. You can get some long lines of sight down the halls for defensive, but again, whenever you're focusing on these areas, you're leaving your back exposed, and there's all these different routes that get into the main spawn locations and objective locations.
I know you guys try to tune everything to be friendly to any and all playstyles, but I'm getting a sense here that playing rockets only on this map could be a heck of a lot of fun.
Absolutely. There's plenty of areas, like if you see that there's these upper deck routes, you can make skill jumps to get to these so that you can go back and forth. It's not a tough jump, but it's one of those things where in the heat of battle it can be, so you have to make a commitment to get up towards those. But the great thing is that there's corners that you can deal with where you get splash damage, you can ricochet grenades into areas where people are camping out and hiding. Everything's kind of measured in terms of being able to do, jumping and sprints, but then there's this lower area. So because you have the level tiers and whatnot, doing things like firing rockets down, it gives you plenty of time to kind of hit walls or hit the ground to get explosive damage. And
now, did you take any inspiration from any earlier Halo levels for this? Because I mean, I guess it's sort of an archetypal design, a center area with some multi-tiered areas immediately surrounding it. Does this remind you of anything, or was it inspired by anything in particular?
We did take inspiration from a lot of prior Halo maps in terms of the general concepts behind the layouts, but this one in particular wasn't directly inspired by or isn't kind of a recreation of a specific element, though it does have some familiar components.
Given the verticality here, I imagine a jetpack might be a good universal armor ability to equip on this level.
While jetpack can be good for covering some of the distances and being able to get up on these areas, we did leave on-foot routes that made it easy enough for players to access different areas and get up into the sections that they want without having to rely on a specific armor ability.
What armor abilities are there one or two or three that when this level comes up you really like to go to them?
Yeah, for this level in particular, I tend to use Promethean Vision. I do use the shield as well, though from my personal play style, I tend to stick to doing things like Thruster Pack, which allows you to kind of, again, whenever you're getting into a firefight with somebody, you can kind of hop out of danger and get behind cover fairly easily and change your weapon.
Now, what is that large object in the very center of this map?
So in the center of the map, the kind of centerpiece and the landmark that players will recognize, and one of the focal points, is there is a mech being constructed. So this is not the Mantis. This is actually a different proto-mech. And let me get a better view of it so that you can see.
And I take it from your usage of the term being constructed that we will not be hopping in this, certainly not in this multiplayer level.
Yeah, you definitely can't use the proto-mech in this map. So the other thing is that you have these little riggings on the outside, but if you do end up strafing off or you're engaging somebody, there's these safety nets on the outside to make sure that you don't go careening to your death unless you specifically, you know, kind of actively work towards doing something risky that might do that for you.
Now, were those railings, were those safety railings always there throughout the course of development, or did you guys add them after flying off accidentally too many times and getting frustrated?
Yeah, anytime you're building a map, we go through a lot of tests. We play test all the time. We play with each other and just make sure that that certain things that happen accidentally or whatever, that we start designing around those to prevent those actions from happening. Typically, we know that that can happen on a map whenever we're in the layout phase. But if we do find some trouble spots where it seems like, you know, people are backpedaling off of a map or whatever, we will do something like add support railings to prevent that and make sure that they've got that bit of a safety net. Because a lot of times when it's hectic, when you're fighting people, multiple targets, and you're kind of moving around, you're not paying attention to what you're backpedaling into.
Definitely not.
So there are still some choice locations where, you know, there's risk involved, where we have things like that. But if you see here, we've got like a lip that goes out, so you will kind of see yourself parallaxing past the railing and realize that your, you know, impending doom is approaching. So yeah, there's some quick routes to get up, like these, which people tend to use at the immediate start whenever they spawn if they want to get into that center area quickly and be on the upper deck. But then again, everything kind of converges into the center where you have these routes that go down, and then you get a bunch of these engagements where you can kind of run in on people that are in those areas, or you can hop back into the halls.
Now, if everything sort of converges to the center, of course, that's the design of the map. Where are the power weapons in this map, and what are they?
So the initial ordnance can change depending on the modes. It depends on what you're playing and what the objective type is, but we do have the sword spawns here between the mech's legs. You get scatter shot and sticky detonator on the outer areas. Right now they're turned off for this kind of walkthrough, but out here you'll get an opportunity to pick up the scatter shot, sticky det. And then we do have needler and sniper. Sometimes you'll get sniper rifle out here.
Did you just say sticky detonators?
Yeah, the sticky detonator.
Can you talk a little bit about that? I don't believe a lot of us might be familiar with that.
So the sticky detonator is a new weapon. It's probably best if I show you, but just to describe it, and we can definitely do that. It's a explosive weapon. You can fire the detonator onto a location, and then it's got a timer. And after that timer exceeds, it's going to automatically explode. But it's a fairly long amount of time. But you can pretty much choose to pull the trigger and detonate the detonator at any time whenever you see enemies approaching. So you can, you know, put them in doorways. You can kind of try and launch them at people in combat. They do have a little blinking light, and they make a distinct noise that is a tell for where they're located. So you can be cautious if you're running around. It's not as easy to just fully camp an area.
Right.
But that being said, there are some ways to fire it at choice times and put it in some key locations that you can definitely catch people off
If you
guard.
if you do happen to catch it as the on defense, can you shoot it to explode it, or perhaps use your hard light shield to move past it without being killed?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the hard light shield can give you some defensive capabilities from the splash damage if you're facing it. Again, you'll get caught by the damage if it's around the shield. But yeah, like going back to what you were originally saying, you can shoot it as well to detonate it early. So if you do see one, there are ways to approach without necessarily taking damage.
Now this looks like that's quite the large ship there off to the side. Is there any narrative context for that? I see the UNSC logo on the side there.
Yeah, so it was a mining vessel at one point in time, and they recommissioned it to use it for the war effort. So while it wasn't originally built for the purposes of war, you know, during battle you kind of have to take what you get. So they took this and basically reinforced it and made it function for their military purposes.
Right, so that is Adrift, a symmetrical, competitive-based map, multi-tier, with some verticality. Check it out. And for more on all 10 Halo 4 multiplayer maps, keep it tuned right here to IGN.